Hello and welcome. We are so happy to have you join us for today's webinar on the development of thinking and life skills, featuring Dr. Michelle Fleming. Dr. Michelle is a clinical Christian counselor, author, and speaker. Dr. Michelle has a PhD in Christian psychology. She has 5 board certifications and over 13 years counseling experience on a variety of counseling issues. In 2001, Dr. Michelle founded Life Renewal, Inc., a nonprofit organization that specializes in empowering you with solutions for a more fulfilling life. She is passionate about helping people identifying core root issues in their underlying thinking, life, and relationship skills. Dr. Michelle teaches us how to change our thinking and therefore change our life and relationships for the better. And now, with no further introduction, here's Dr. Michelle.
I am so excited to be able to share with you a foundational teaching on the development of thinking and life skills. This is a teaching that you can build upon to affect changes and improve every area of your life. When I meet with a client for the first time, I normally give them the opportunity to be able to get to know me and ask me any questions that they want to ask. So to begin with, I'll just tell you a little bit about me. Besides the things that you've already heard of me in my profession, I am married to a wonderful man named Nathan, and I have 3 grown children. I also have 4 furry little children in my household, which are 3 dogs and 1 cat. And I'd also like to really share with you how I approach things in counseling. I have my clients coming from all different backgrounds and walks in life, and they have varying belief systems. And I always share with them, as I'm sharing with you, that this foundational truth that I'm teaching you today is applicable to you regardless of your belief systems. I like my clients, however, to understand and know where I personally am coming from. And that, as a Christian counselor, is from a biblical belief system. And I will share some of the things from that belief system. My clients usually kind of laugh at me when I tell them that I want them to understand I respect them for wherever they are in their life or their beliefs. And I let them know that being myself, I'll share what I share, and if they don't like something, they may stop me at any given time and ask me to be quiet. And I want you to know that this teaching can be effectively applied to your life, whatever your belief system. So to begin with, let's start with just understanding from my perspective the holistic approach at looking at how we heal things in our lives. And that's from a perspective of understanding that we are body, soul, and spirit. And we cannot fully be overcomers unless we look at all 3 areas. We cannot forget that we have a body, what we do with our body, what we put in our body, what we listen to, what we watch, what we eat, if we exercise. All of these things are going to have an effect on us. Our soul area is our traditional area of counseling, and the soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. So that includes all of your thinking patterns, the core beliefs that you develop from your life experiences. And your will is all of your choices and behaviors and actions. They're your life skills, the way that you navigate through your life. And then based on what you're thinking, your emotions are going to go up and down, and you're either going to control your emotions or they're going to control you. So we need to understand that there is always an interaction between our body and our soul area. We can see that clearly. If you have the flu and you don't feel well, your body is sick, you respond emotionally by maybe snapping somebody's head off if they wake you up. And likewise, if we're thinking and feeling lousy, we can have chemical changes within our body. So we can see the interaction between our body and our soul. But we are a triune being, so we need to understand as well that there is a spiritual part of us too that is affected by the choices that we make with our body and soul and the doors that we open. Coming from this perspective, I want to explain to you that this foundational teaching of the development of our thinking and life skills has the ability to bring transformation to your life. We have choices. We are not defined by our past. We are not defined by our mistakes. We are not defined by the things that have happened to us. Even if we've been victimized, we are not a victim. We can be an overcomer. So that means that we can enter into transformation processes and change and take control of our thoughts and our belief systems and the actions that come from those thoughts and beliefs. Now, from a Christian perspective, if you have that belief system, it's called sanctification, a process of being set apart and changing. So I want the Christian community to understand what I'm also talking about is speeding up your sanctification process. But overall, what you're doing is transforming your thinking and life skills by looking at your thinking, how you developed, and being able to have tools to then change that. Now, I totally believe that every one of us, there is a plan in our life to prosper us and not to harm us. That we have the potential to be who we want to be and accomplish what we want, but some of us just get derailed along the way. But you can get back on that proper path. So understanding the overall development is what this next graph is showing you. I'm using an analogy from planting an apple seed into its soil and then watching that apple seed germinate and turning into the trunk of the tree with the branches and the foliage coming from that. So that is the analogy of the next few slides in this PowerPoint presentation. So what is that seed? That seed has everything in it that's needed for that plant to grow. It has the complete design. Our DNA is designed of what we are, who we are. Just like that apple seed, you're never going to plant an apple seed and get an orange tree. It's not going to happen. It has everything it needs within the seed to complete everything it's called to do, which is produce apples. And that's just like us. Our seed is the design of our soul, who we were created to be. And that includes your temperament, your gifts, and your talents. And some people, when I say that, will say, well, I don't feel like I have any gifts and talents. Well, you do. Every one of us has gifts and talents. And if you don't see them yet, you will see them. But we're all unique. We are not supposed to be carbon copies or bricks. We are living stones, unique and different and interesting. And every one of us has strengths and weaknesses, gifts and talents. So beginning and understanding the design of this seed, let me explain what your temperament is. Okay, when I say temperament, a lot of times people get confused and think that I'm talking about your personality or your behaviors. And there's a lot of different tools that people have used and reports to be able to identify behavior patterns and personality. That is not what I'm talking about. Your temperament is the blueprint of your soul. It is all of the tendencies that you have on the design that you were created after. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Some of us may be very personable and outgoing and friendly, where some of us may be introverted thinkers. Some of us love to handle roles and decision-making and responsibility, where some of us prefer to let somebody else take those roles. There is a unique blueprint inside all of us that is the design of our soul. And within it, it contains our strengths and things that are non-strengths and the needs that we have. So understanding the building blocks of how we get to where we are starts at the bottom square, where our temperament is that blueprint design of our soul. It's kind of like the original bowl of batter. If you're making cookies, you mix that sugar and flour and butter, and then you can add chips to it, or you can add nuts to it, or you can create different things from it, but it starts with the foundation. That is our temperament. It is the tendencies and design of our soul. And then we enter our environments, and it's within our environments that our temperament reacts and then begins to develop personality and character traits. So this is where we develop learned behavior patterns. Sometimes how we present ourselves in our learned behavior patterns is not the tendencies of our temperament, but how we've developed or believed we have to become and adhere and adapt to our environments. Which brings us to the next square, which is mask. We may select behavior patterns that we think are appropriate. For example, If you're a people-oriented person and you were told all your life that you talk too much and children should be seen and not heard, you may curb your ability at being outgoing and try to shove yourself into a different box than is really truly your design. And the opposite of that would be many people that I've talked to that feel like, well, they wish that they were more outgoing. They wish they could talk better. They wish that they were friendlier, but they're just a more quiet, introverted person. Nothing wrong with their design. They're just different than another temperament. So when we believe something different about how we're designed and we try to live outside of that realm, we're wearing a mask. We can step outside of our designs for a time period, but we can't camp there or it's going to cause us a lot of distress. So in understanding the development of that seed, which has everything it needs in it, if I take an apple seed and I plant it, I want to put it in fertile soil. I want to put it in well-irrigated soil. I want to put it in a location where it's going to get the sun, the water, and the nutrients it needs to develop. What happens if I take that seed and living in Florida, let's say I drive on down to the beach and I put that seed at the shoreline? Well, what's going to happen is it is not going to receive what it needs to develop properly. And so if it even germinates at all, it certainly isn't going to turn into a healthy apple tree that's going to produce apples. So what we need to understand is we are affected by what we're planted in. So using us in this analogy, like this apple seed, we are planted, but we're not a seed, so where are we planted? We are planted in our environment, and our environment is our family of origin, our community, and our peer groups. It's in these environments that we receive the nutrition that we need, just like a plant seed receives it from the soil. We either receive nutrients or we receive deficits. So because we've grown up in a fallen world and every person on the planet is flawed, we are not going to get 100% measure of the nutrients that we need. We're going to have some deficits. And we can look at our lives and in varying degrees, we've received nutrients and we've received deficits. Some of us may have had greater quantities of deficits and some of us may have had greater quantities of nutrients. So what are the nutrients and the deficits? What do we get those from as we're not a seed planted in soil? Well, planted in our family of origin, our community, and our peer group is where our needs are met. Psychology and the Bible tell us what our 10 most significant needs are. There is no one that does not need to have these needs met. However, we do have varying levels of having these needs met based on the design of our temperament. These needs are acceptance, affection, appreciation, approval, attention, comfort, encouragement, respect, security, and support. These are the components that help us to grow up with good identities, with confidence, with skills to become an overcomer and face the things that we face in our life. So when we have an absence of those, we have deficits, and it causes our thinking and our life skill to go in different directions. When I teach people about these words, I start with just explaining how these words are an explanation of what we need, the needs that we had, the minimal things that we must have to grow properly. But you can look at these words from so many different angles. With couple relationships or family interactions, this is a measuring stick of what should we give to each other in our nurturing relationships with your family, your children, your best friends. These are components that are needed from us to them and from them to us. With an absence of these needs met, we have emotional and verbal abuse systems, as well as other types of abuse. But the absence of our needs met are some kind of trauma and abuse that we have experienced, and many of us don't even realize that. And they, again, will leave us with a deficit. So we understand that the seed has absolutely everything it needs except for the environment. And when we're planting the environment, it depends on the quality of the nutrients we get and how we develop. Let's take a look at the 3 areas of that environment. How about our family of origin? Okay, our family of origin is anyone that we grew up with in our time of development. That could be our mom and dad. It could be a mom and a step-parent. It could be your grandparents. It could be a foster family. It could be anybody who took the role of caregiver in your life. This is your family of origin. Now, our families can look very different. There are families that have single parents, families that have two generations in a household, families that are divorced, teen parents, parents that may be a little bit emotionally unavailable. There may be families that have boundary issues or life skill issues. There may be trauma, neglect, abandonment. There may be different issues within a family system, alcoholism, any form of addiction, anger problems, or avoidance. And these are obviously the negative components to what can be present in a family system that would cause some of the deficits that we have. Likewise, the meeting of those 10 needs would be in the family system what nurtures us and provides the nutrients. Okay, and the second area of our environment is our community. What does our community consist of? It could be anything from the football team you belong to, or the girls' softball team you are on, or it could be band, or it could have been a youth group you belong to, or it might have just been your neighborhood and the kids in groups that you participated with. What did the community look like? Were you isolated from the community? Did you fit in with the community? Did you live in a neighborhood that was unsafe or had a high crime rate? Did you have the things that you needed within your community, or was there poverty? Depending on that community environment, again, shows us a level of how well we receive nutrients or deficits. And then in the third area of our environment is our peer groups. These are the people we chose to be in close relationships with. These are our best friends, the people that we invite into our world, that we allow to shape us, mold us. We become like them. We hang with them. In these environments, we receive messages of what's okay and appropriate, and we succumb to peer pressure, or maybe we've experienced rejection from our peers. And maybe we've joined in behavior patterns that have been destructive to be a part of the community in our peer group. So in all three of these areas, our family of origin, our community, and our peer groups, we are either receiving the nutrients we need or receiving deficits. The seed is planted into this environment. It meets needs in certain and varying levels. And then, keeping with our analogy, the seed begins to develop and germinate, and the tender shoot comes through the soil, and the trunk of the tree and the branches start to develop simultaneously. That trunk of the tree carries the branches, the foliage, and the fruit through the life of that tree. So what carries us through our life? It is our life skills. What do we do every day when we interact in our environment? It is our thinking skills that direct us. So simultaneously, these two areas are developing. Now, most of the time when people come for counseling, the major areas that they present problems with are in the life skills that would be defined as coping skills, communication skills, conflict resolution skills, and relationship skills. Many people have challenges in how they deal with things, whether they tuck their head in the sand or they're able to express their feelings or ask for what they want or handle a conflict to get to the place of resolution. And all of this will affect our relationship skills. So let's a little more broadly define what life skills are. They are the way that we interact with our environment. Every day we maneuver through our life and we have to handle all kinds of things, and we handle them with our life skills. Whether or not it's about budgeting our money and handling finances, our hygiene, our work ethic, our study skills, whether or not we're assertive or can set boundaries or we can confront somebody. Any of these areas are defined as life skills. So in developing our skills, we have some positive life skills and we have negative life skills. Some examples of negative coping and conflict resolution skills. would be addictions. If I develop a coping pattern to deal with things by using drugs or alcohol or pornography or gambling, or I become a people pleaser and I think I have to save and please people and provide for their needs and that it's always my responsibility, and I become hyper vigilant in caring for others at the loss of not caring for myself. Or if I develop an anger problem and maybe blow up in fits of rage, or there is abuse that happens within relationships, whether that be physical, sexual, emotional, verbal, or psychological abuse, which usually includes all forms of control and manipulation. Or maybe I develop coping skills of avoidance, that instead of blowing up and attacking somebody, I just tuck my head in the sand and I don't attempt to make any effort to resolve anything or even talk about anything because I just don't want to deal with conflict. Or maybe I'm passive aggressive, that I want to deal with things, but I don't just express myself clearly, but instead I give little sideways jabs about things. Okay, these are the way our life skills develop. And again, it's from that seed which had everything it needed to be planted in the environment, where it develops and grows and then begins to produce from what it received from its environment. Simultaneously, our thinking is developing, and these are our branches. Okay, so what's a part of that? That's our thinking patterns, the way our mind begins to work. We have life experiences that send us messages, and we develop patterns of thought that roll through our head, and we have certain paths that it goes down, and actually have grooves in our brain that our mind just automatically goes a certain direction when certain types of things happen, and we react based on the way we follow that path in our brain. And we have a core belief system that develops. And the best way to define our core belief system is it's like a default drive on our computers. Whether I like it or not, when I am typing things out in Word, it is going to capitalize the first word in every sentence, even if I don't want it to, because that is the default drive. And I can't change it unless I go in there and rewrite the default drive. Well, that is what we need to understand in this foundational teaching, that we have the ability to rewrite our default drive. So the branches are our thinking skills, the thinking patterns, and the core belief system. Now, in psychology, I explain to my clients that the psychological words are calling it a core belief system, that we need to have rational responses to what we're thinking and our self-talk, that we need to reframe our thinking. These are the psychological words for it. If you're a Christian, the Christian way of saying that is we have mental strongholds, and the Word of God tells us to take captive our thoughts and tear down every stronghold, and defines that as any thought process that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. We can be transformed by the renewing of our minds. So we need to understand that whether we're looking at it from a belief system or not that belief system, we're talking about a system of thinking that has unhealthy thinking patterns and faulty belief systems. And based on these, we start and begin to create vows. I talk to people every day where they have no idea. They made a vow that said, I am never going to let anybody get near me again because I've been hurt and I've been offended and I've been rejected, and I'm never letting anybody close enough to do that to me again. And they make a vow, and then they wonder why they're lonely and not getting along. We can make vows based on the experiences we've been in and the thought patterns and finally the core beliefs that develop, and we make vows based on those. We develop unhealthy and negative attitudes. We may have expectations that everybody's going to let us down, or that no matter what we do, it's never going to be good enough. And these are again based on a faulty core belief system. Or we may just have self-focused motives because we're telling ourselves that if I don't take care of me, then who's going to? Again, understanding that that seed received certain nutrients and deficits, and what has been produced is the development of our thinking and our life skills. So truly, the truth is we have a battleground right here in our minds. We can decide to just never question what we think or we can come against the things that are hindering our life. I tell people that their big word for the day is megacognition. Megacognition is thinking about our thinking. We are the only animal on the planet that can think about our thinking. We can do something about what we think, and we can do something about what we believe, and the fruit of what our thinking and beliefs actually produce. But it begins by looking at it and being humble and willing to deal with it, understanding that there's no one on the planet who has arrived in this area. We all have thinking that needs to be torn down. We all have life skills that can be improved upon. So when we will accept that and own where we are and how we've gotten here, one of the things I tell my clients is, if you feel safe in looking at the things that are wrong with you, it'll be a lot easier to look at what's wrong with you. And the way to do that is to understand that your behaviors do not define you. Your behaviors are separate from your identity. And a lot of times people don't believe this, and even in the Christian community, we have a hard time understanding the difference between behaviors and identity. Our identity is who we have been designed and called to be. And even from a religious perspective, we have been designed for good things. Our behaviors are our actions, which can change. It does not mean that at our core we are a poor identity. Our identity is separate. And from a Christian perspective, there are big biblical examples of that. And I tell people, whether you have any belief biblically or not, this is a good example. In the Bible, David made big mistakes. He committed adultery. He used the power of being a king to bring a beautiful woman to her, to violate her, and get her pregnant. And then to cover his bad behavior, he killed her husband. Okay, never was he described in the Bible as an adulterer and a murderer. Why? Because his behavior was separate from his identity. And God called him a man after God's heart. Why? Because he was willing to look at his thinking, change his mind, and line himself up in a different direction. So whether that's your belief system or not, the point is that you are not defined by your past. You are not defined by your mistakes. You are not defined by your failures. And you are not defined by your behaviors. Line your identity up with those things by being transformed in your thinking and your core beliefs, and everything from there will improve. So we need to own where we are and take a look at it and pay attention to the perceptions and the belief systems that we really have. Because healthy thinking produces healthy emotions, healthy relationships, healthy coping skills, and life skills in general in every area. So honestly, the way to understand this, it's to understand that all of the information that we receive through our eyes, listening, communicating with each other, everything comes through the perception in our mind and goes through the filter of our soul. And we have clogged filters. There's a bunch of mud in them based on what we've experienced and what we have surmised as our perception through that experience as we've developed a belief system. And everything we receive comes through that filter. And if the filter is muddy, then the information that comes into perception has been tainted. And we need to clean out that filter and look at our thinking and be transformed by that. Following through and back to our analogy, that apple seed has everything it needs to be a successful apple tree. And in your design, there is not a flaw. You were designed on purpose for a purpose, and you have everything you need to be successful in your life and be an overcomer. That seed gets planted, but the environment has not met all of our needs, and so we have developed in varying life and relationship skills, and in every way developed patterns as a human being that fall short of where we need to be. So now we look at the tree, and that's a representative of how healthy it is. The root system's healthy, well, the tree is going to have great fruit on it. It's going to have green, shiny foliage and blossoms and produce lots of apples. We look at our slide here and we see a scrawny little tree, but it's just laden with apples. So we look at our lives and where we are, and we can see pockets where we have fruit. and we have apples on our tree, but maybe there's branches that just need a good pruning, and we have to look at those and do something to transform. And these are the foliage is our behavior and our actions, our speech patterns, and this type of thing, which gives us a reflection and an idea of how well our thinking and life skills are serving us. So we understand that it's our core belief system that drives us. What does it drive? It drives all of your emotional patterns. Okay, we're human beings. It is normal for us to react, but it should be a slow, small, curving wave, not peak spikes up and down, up and down. Our emotions should be something we can control and manage and not something that controls us. But it is the belief system that drives our emotions. Likewise, our core belief system drives our speech patterns. Whatever you're thinking is going to come out of the mouth, because what's in the heart is going to come out of your mouth. When I listen to people, I can sit there and write down core belief after another and identify what their true beliefs are by what they're speaking. And our core belief system is what drives all of the ways we interact with our environment based on our life skills and the way that we relate to other people in all of our relationship skills. So the question is do your beliefs and thinking patterns propel you into healthy feelings and healthy behavior patterns and healthy relationships, or are they hindering you? And if so, which for all of us, if we're honest, there are areas that we all need improvement. And here's the good news. Nobody arrives. You are not alone in this. I tell my clients, what do you think that you're the only person? Do you think that I don't also have to look at my thinking and grab hold of it? The difference is when you have the understanding and you develop the tools and the skills, instead of this pattern allowing you to go into destructive behaviors and failures, you can grab it quickly and navigate through the challenges and circumstances in your life.
Thank you for joining me. I hope this teaching helped open your eyes to how your life experiences have influenced the way that you think and behave. It helps to realize that we are all just people in various stages of our personal development. I hope you gained a greater understanding that everyone has areas they struggle with and that we all need to continue in our personal development. None of us have arrived, and we can progress in polishing our ability to operate in healthy thinking, life, and relationship skills. If you have enjoyed this webinar, please visit me at www.drmichelle.org. We add helpful content daily to support you on your life journey. You can also follow me on facebook.com/Life Renewal or call me at 904-730-0775.